Something completely unexpected happened inside Bruno Mars' pinky ring at the Bellagio, and it involved one of the biggest Latin music stars in the world. Bruno Mars and Karol G shared the same stage, and what happened next instantly turned the intimate Las Vegas lounge into a celebration of Latin music, pop, and Bruno's unmistakable performance style. But there is one detail that makes this moment even more interesting, because this was not simply another celebrity appearance. Bruno and Karol G reportedly performed multiple songs together during the same night, including Bruno's own rendition of Hechizeros Band's iconic El Sonidito, Karol G's massive hit Antes Te Hubiera Conocido, and their brand new collaboration Still. And while only part of that unforgettable night has been captured in the video making the rounds, the bigger story is what happened around it. So before we get into the details, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because if you love Bruno Mars, Karol G, Latin music, live performances, and unexpected celebrity collaborations, this is one moment you definitely do not want to miss. Now picture the scene. Las Vegas, the Bellagio, the pinky ring, a room created around Bruno Mars' own vision of a glamorous, intimate nightlife experience. And then suddenly Karol G enters the picture. For Bruno Mars fans, the pinky ring has always represented something different from a conventional concert venue. It is not a massive stadium. It is not an arena filled with tens of thousands of people. It is an intimate lounge where Bruno can move between polished showmanship, classic covers, improvisation, musicianship, and unexpected collaborations. That setting matters, because Bruno Mars has always been an artist who thrives when he can interact directly with a room. The Pinky Ring was designed as a cocktail lounge and live music venue at Bellagio Resort and Casino, with Bruno Mars closely involved in its concept and aesthetic. MGM Resorts described it as a destination built around timeless glamour, live entertainment, and the kind of atmosphere Bruno wanted for his Las Vegas parties. And that history explains why a performance like this feels so natural. This is Bruno in his element. But then comes the surprise. Karol G, one of Latin music's most recognizable stars. The Colombian superstar has spent years turning reggaeton, Latin pop, urbano, and Caribbean-inspired sounds into a global phenomenon. And now she was standing beside Bruno Mars. Not at an awards ceremony, not during a giant festival, not in a heavily produced stadium show. Inside Bruno's own lounge. And that distinction is everything. Because when the lights go down in a room like the Pinky Ring, there is an expectation that anything can happen. The first major surprise was El Sonidito. For anyone familiar with Mexican party culture and Latin music, that title immediately means something. Hechizeros Band's El Sonidito has become one of those songs that can transform an ordinary party into absolute chaos. Its signature electronic sound is instantly recognizable. And Bruno Mars has demonstrated throughout his career that he loves taking familiar songs and turning them into something that fits his own performance language. That is exactly why this rendition attracted so much attention. Rather than treating El Sonidito as a conventional cover, Bruno reportedly delivered his own interpretation of the song, bringing his signature stage personality into a track already famous for its infectious energy. And then came the moment that made the performance even more special. Karol G was there. Suddenly, the musical connection became obvious. Bruno Mars represents a deeply American pop and funk tradition, while Karol G represents a modern Latin movement that has become one of the most powerful forces in global music. Put those two artists in the same room, and the possibilities are almost endless. And El Sonidito became the perfect bridge. The rhythm does not need an explanation. The audience recognizes it. The musicians understand it. And Bruno understands something extremely important about live entertainment. Sometimes you do not need a complicated arrangement. You need one recognizable sound, one unexpected artist, and one room ready to explode. That is where Bruno has always been dangerous as a live performer. He can take a song that people already know and make the audience feel like they are hearing it for the first time. But this was only the beginning, because another Karol G song entered the night. Antes Te Hubiera Conocido, and this is where the atmosphere changed. The song has become one of Karol G's defining recent hits, with its warm Caribbean flavor, romantic nostalgia, and unmistakable summer energy. When Karol performs it, there is a natural sense of movement. People sing, people dance, and the song feels larger than the recording itself. Now imagine Bruno Mars stepping into that environment. The combination is almost too perfect. Bruno's rhythmic instincts are built for music like this. His catalog has always crossed genres: pop, funk, R&B, soul, reggae influences, rock, and increasingly Latin sounds. That ability to move between musical worlds is one of the reasons collaborations involving Bruno tend to generate so much curiosity. He does not simply appear on a song. He often changes the atmosphere around it. And that is exactly why this night at the Pinky Ring became more than just another celebrity sighting. It became a musical conversation. Bruno Mars and Karol G were not simply two famous people standing next to each other. They were two artists from different musical worlds discovering how naturally those worlds can overlap. And then came the detail that may ultimately become the biggest part of the story. Still, their collaboration. The song has been attracting major attention as part of Karol G's newly released album, No Me Arrepiento de Sentir Tanto, which features Bruno Mars among a remarkable group of international collaborators. Recent reports confirm Bruno's appearance on Still, placing the two superstars together on record as well as in this live setting. That makes the Pinky Ring performance especially interesting, because this was not just a random collaboration between two artists meeting backstage. There was already a musical connection. They had already created something together, and now they had the opportunity to bring that chemistry into a live environment. Think about how rare that is. A studio collaboration can be edited. Vocals can be recorded separately. Arrangements can be adjusted. Every detail can be polished. A live performance is different. There is nowhere to hide. The chemistry has to exist in real time. The musicians have to react. The singers have to communicate. And the audience has to believe what they are seeing. That is why live collaborations are so revealing. And in this case, the atmosphere of the Pinky Ring gives the performance an entirely different character. Instead of thousands of screaming fans separated from the stage by a giant production, the room is intimate. Every movement feels closer. Every vocal phrase feels more exposed. Every interaction between Bruno and Karol becomes easier to notice. And that makes the performance feel almost like an exclusive session that viewers were never supposed to see. Now, here is where things get interesting. The video circulating from the night does not show everything that reportedly happened. The footage that fans have been discussing focuses on Bruno's performance of El Sonidito with Karol G. But the same night reportedly included Antes Te Hubiera Conocido and Still as well. And Still was not shown in the video. That means viewers are only seeing one piece of a much larger night. Pause there, because this is exactly the kind of detail that can get lost when a viral clip takes over social media. A short video can make it look like one song was the entire event. But live entertainment does not work that way, especially not at the Pinky Ring. The Pinky Ring was built around live music, nightlife, and the freedom to create moments that do not necessarily become part of a massive public concert archive. MGM Resorts has described the venue as a cocktail lounge and live music destination curated around Bruno's personal vision, with the Hooligans serving as the venue's initial resident band. That means some of the most interesting moments can happen away from the cameras. And this Karol G appearance is a perfect example. What fans can see is already impressive, but what they cannot see may be just as important. Because performing Still together for the first time on the same night adds another layer to the story. Suddenly, the performance is no longer simply about Bruno covering a Latin classic. It becomes part of the rollout and cultural moment surrounding their new collaboration. And the timing could not be more interesting. Karol G is currently entering a major new chapter. And just when fans thought they had already seen the most interesting part of Bruno Mars and Karol G's unforgettable night in Las Vegas, another question began to emerge. What happens when two artists who already sound incredible together in the studio suddenly have the freedom to perform without the limitations of a traditional concert? That is exactly what makes the Pinky Ring appearance so fascinating. Bruno Mars has spent years building a reputation as one of the most dynamic live performers in modern music. His concerts are carefully designed, but they also leave room for personality, musicianship, humor, and unexpected moments. Karol G brings a completely different energy. Her performances are rooted in Latin rhythms, emotional storytelling, and a connection with audiences that can turn a song into a massive celebration. Put them together in a smaller room and suddenly the rules change. There is no need to create a massive spectacle. The music becomes the spectacle. And that is why the footage of Bruno performing El Sonidito continues to attract attention. The song itself already carries an enormous amount of cultural energy, but hearing Bruno put his own spin on it creates an entirely different experience. He takes the familiar rhythm and filters it through the musical personality that has defined his career. The result is not simply a cover. It becomes a Bruno Mars moment, and having Karol G beside him makes the performance even more meaningful. Karol understands the rhythm instinctively. She does not need to force herself into Bruno's style, and Bruno does not need to completely transform himself into a Latin artist. Instead, both artists remain recognizable. That is the secret. The collaboration works because neither performer has to lose their identity. Bruno remains Bruno, Karol remains Karol, and the music becomes the meeting point. For longtime Bruno Mars fans, this is an especially interesting chapter because his career has always been built around musical versatility. From pop and R&B to funk, soul, reggae influences, rock, and the Silk Sonic era, Bruno has consistently shown that his musical vocabulary is much larger than a single category. Karol G has followed a similar path from another direction. She helped bring Latin urban music into the mainstream while expanding her sound across pop, reggaeton, dance, Caribbean influences, and emotional ballads. That makes their collaboration feel almost inevitable. The global music audience is changing. The old boundaries between English-language pop and Spanish-language music are becoming less important. Listeners are no longer staying inside one musical category. A fan can listen to Bruno Mars in the morning, Karol G in the afternoon, and then move between Korean pop, Afrobeats, Latin music, hip-hop, and R&B without thinking twice. The artists who understand that change are the ones creating the most exciting collaborations. And Bruno and Karol are clearly part of that movement. But there is still one part of this story that deserves even more attention. Still, the song is important because it gives this entire pinky ring moment a connection beyond one night. El Sonidito represents the surprise. Si Antes Te Hubiera Conocido represents the celebration, but still represents the collaboration itself. It is the song that brings Bruno Mars and Karol G together as recording artists. And reportedly hearing them perform it together live on the same night adds another layer to their partnership. For fans who were not inside the room, that creates a strange situation. They know something happened. They know the artists were together. They have seen part of the performance, but they do not have access to every moment. And that missing footage becomes part of the mystery. In the age of social media, that is unusual. Usually, everything gets recorded. Someone pulls out a phone. Someone uploads a clip. Someone posts a backstage photo. Someone shares a live stream. Within minutes, the entire world knows what happened. But intimate venues can be different. A moment can happen in front of hundreds of people and still remain largely private. That is what gives the pinky ring its unique appeal. It feels like a place where celebrity culture and live music can overlap without everything becoming a massive public production. And Bruno Mars appears to understand the value of that environment. The pinky ring is not simply another place to perform. It is part of the Bruno Mars brand. It reflects his love for classic nightlife, live bands, sophisticated entertainment, and the feeling of discovering something unexpected. That is why having Karol G appear there feels so significant. It was not just a random venue. It was Bruno's venue, and Karol G was stepping into his musical world. But Bruno was also stepping into hers. That exchange is what makes the night so compelling. When Bruno performs El Sonidito, he is entering a song with a strong Latin and Mexican party identity. When Karol performs Si Antes Te Hubiera Conocido, she is bringing her own world into the room. And when they perform still, they are creating something that belongs to both of them. 3 different musical moments, 3 different energies, one night, and that progression tells a story. First comes recognition, then celebration, then collaboration. That is almost the perfect structure for a live musical encounter. And it explains why fans are so interested in what happened inside the room. Because people are not simply watching 2 celebrities. They are watching musical chemistry develop in real time. You can see it in the way performers respond to each other. You can hear it in the way they adapt their vocals. You can feel it when the audience reacts. Those details cannot be manufactured by a studio. A live stage reveals everything. And Bruno Mars has always been particularly good at creating that feeling. He knows when to step forward. He knows when to let the band breathe. He knows when the audience needs a moment of silence. And he knows exactly when to turn the energy back up. Karol G brings her own instincts into that equation. The result is a performance that feels less like a formal collaboration and more like 2 artists having fun with music. And perhaps that is why the moment feels so authentic. There is no sense that they are trying to prove anything. They are simply performing. That is something audiences sometimes forget when watching global superstars. Behind the streaming numbers, awards, headlines, luxury events, and stadiums are musicians who still enjoy standing on a stage and surprising a room. The pinky ring gives Bruno that freedom, and Karol G was the perfect guest for it. Now think about the timing. Karol G is entering another major phase in her career with her new album and its high-profile collaborations. Bruno Mars is also continuing to expand his musical legacy while maintaining his reputation as one of the world's premier live entertainers. Their paths crossing at this particular moment creates an opportunity for something much larger. Collaboration can begin as a song, then it becomes a performance, then it becomes a viral moment. Then fans begin asking whether there could be another collaboration in the future. That is how musical partnerships grow. And the pinky ring performance may have given fans their first real glimpse of what Bruno Mars and Karol G can sound like when they are not limited to a studio recording. The chemistry is the story. The spontaneity is the story. The fact that they can move between completely different songs in the same night is the story. And the fact that some of those moments were not captured on video only makes the story more intriguing. There is also a bigger cultural element. Bruno Mars represents one of the most successful modern examples of an artist who can connect generations. Older listeners recognize the influences in his music. Younger listeners grew up with his biggest hits. His live shows attract fans from completely different backgrounds. Karol G has achieved something similar within the Latin music world. She has built a global audience without abandoning the language and cultural identity that made her music distinctive. Their collaboration therefore represents more than genre crossover. It represents audience crossover. Someone who discovered Karol G through Antes Te Hubiera Conocido might now become curious about Bruno Mars. Someone who has followed Bruno for years might discover another side of Karol's catalog. That is the power of collaboration. Creates new doors. And when those doors open naturally, the results can be much more powerful than a traditional promotional campaign. That may ultimately be the biggest takeaway from this Las Vegas night. The best collaborations do not feel forced. They feel obvious after they happen. The story surrounding Bruno Mars and Karol G does not end when the lights at the pinky ring go down. In fact, that may be where the most interesting questions begin. Because when 2 artists at this level share a stage, even a relatively intimate performance can create a ripple effect far beyond the room where it happened. One clip appears online. Fans recognize Bruno Mars. They recognize Karol G. They hear the opening sounds of El Sonidito. And immediately the conversation begins. What exactly happened? How many songs did they perform? Was this planned? Was it a one-night surprise? And most importantly, could this be the beginning of something bigger between Bruno Mars and Karol G? Those questions are understandable. But the most important thing is to separate what viewers can actually see from what remains behind the scenes. The circulating footage gives fans a glimpse of Bruno performing his own rendition of El Sonidito with Karol G. That alone would have been enough to create a memorable Las Vegas moment. But reports surrounding the same night point to an even fuller musical experience, with Antes Te Hubiera Conocido and Still also performed. And that changes the story completely, because now we are not talking about a single surprise song. We are talking about an entire sequence of musical moments. Imagine being inside that room. You walk into the pinky ring expecting an evening of live entertainment. Then Bruno Mars takes the stage. The band begins playing. The atmosphere changes, and suddenly Karol G appears. At that point, nobody in the room knows exactly what is coming next. Then the familiar rhythm of El Sonidito arrives. The reaction is immediate. People know the song. They know the energy. But Bruno is not simply reproducing the original recording. He is putting his own personality into it. That is one of the things that has made Bruno Mars such a powerful live performer. He understands that a cover is not supposed to be a photocopy. A great performer takes something familiar and gives it a new identity. That is what makes people pay attention. And with Karol G standing beside him, the performance gains another layer. There is a cultural connection happening in real time. The music crosses borders without needing an explanation. The rhythm communicates before the lyrics do, and the audience becomes part of the performance. This is where the intimate setting becomes crucial. At a giant stadium, a surprise collaboration can feel enormous, but in a lounge, it can feel personal. Instead of watching two superstars from hundreds of meters away, the audience is close enough to see their expressions, reactions, and interactions. Every musical decision feels more immediate. Every change in tempo becomes more noticeable. Every moment between the performers becomes part of the experience. And that is exactly the type of environment where Bruno Mars tends to shine. He has built his career around spectacle, but he has never depended entirely on spectacle. Strip away the giant production, and the core of Bruno Mars is still there. The voice, the rhythm, the band, the personality, the showmanship, and the ability to make a room feel like something special is happening. Karol G brings that same sense of connection from her own musical world. Her biggest songs can turn enormous venues into collective celebrations. But in a smaller room, that connection becomes even more concentrated. And that makes the combination with Bruno so intriguing. They do not need a massive production to create a big moment. The two artists themselves are the event. Now consider Antes Te Hubiera Conocido. The song carries a completely different emotional energy from El Sonidito, where El Sonidito immediately pushes the room towards celebration. Antes Te Hubiera Conocido carries a more romantic and nostalgic atmosphere. That contrast makes the reported sequence even more interesting. Bruno and Karol were not simply repeating the same musical formula. They were moving between moods, between styles, between different sides of Latin and global pop music. And then there is Still. This is where the story shifts again, because Still is not simply a familiar cover. It represents their collaboration. The song is part of Karol G's current musical era, and Bruno Mars' involvement gives it another international dimension. Performing it together in a live setting creates something that a studio recording cannot fully reproduce. Studio music can preserve a perfect take. Live music captures a moment, and moments disappear. That is why live performances matter so much. A recording can be played 1,000,000 times, but a live performance happens once. Even when it is repeated later, the audience is different, the atmosphere is different, and the energy is different. That is what makes the reported first live performance of Still particularly interesting. And the fact that it was not included in the circulating video makes the story even more curious. Fans are effectively seeing only part of the night. They have the visible evidence of one major performance. But the rest exists through reports and the memories of people who were there. That creates a strange kind of exclusivity. The audience inside the room experienced something that the internet did not fully capture. And in an era when almost every celebrity moment becomes instantly available online, that is increasingly rare. It also tells us something about the pinky ring. The venue was created around the idea of a sophisticated, intimate nightlife experience connected to Bruno Mars and his musical identity. It is not simply a place where famous people show up for photographs. It is designed around live entertainment. That means an unexpected performance can happen naturally. A guest artist can join, a song can change, the band can respond, and the night can become something that was never completely planned from the perspective of the audience. That unpredictability is part of the appeal. And perhaps Karol G was the perfect artist to bring into that environment. She has the confidence to perform in front of any crowd. She can move between powerful vocals and rhythmic delivery. She understands how to control an audience, and she knows how to make a song feel like a celebration. Bruno understands the same language, even though his musical background is different. That is why their chemistry feels believable. They are different artists with different identities, but they share one important quality. They understand performance. And performance is not just singing. It is timing. It is reaction. It is knowing when to push the energy forward and when to let the audience breathe. It is knowing when a familiar melody is enough and when a surprise is necessary. That is where Bruno and Karol meet. Their musical partnership therefore represents more than a genre crossover. It represents a performance crossover. Two artists who know how to make people pay attention. Two artists who understand the value of a live audience. Two artists who can transform a song into an experience. And that may explain why fans are already curious about what comes next. Because once audiences see chemistry like this, they naturally begin imagining future possibilities. Could Bruno join Karol G for another live appearance? Could Karol G appear during a future Bruno Mars concert? Could Still eventually become a major live performance for both artists? Could there be another song, another collaboration, another surprise? Nobody should assume the answers, but the questions themselves demonstrate how powerful the moment has become. A single night in Las Vegas can create a conversation that travels around the world. That is the nature of modern music. A fan records a few seconds. Someone else shares it. Another person recognizes the song. Then another person notices Karol G. Suddenly, the clip becomes a global conversation, and the story becomes bigger than the original video. That is how viral music moments work. But the best ones have something underneath the virality. They have genuine musical chemistry, and Bruno Mars and Karol G clearly have a reason to be on the same stage. Their collaboration still already gives them a musical connection. Their shared performance adds a live dimension, and the pinky ring provides the perfect setting. Everything lines up: the venue, the artists, the songs, the timing, the audience, the surprise. But the more people talk about Bruno Mars and Karol G sharing the stage at the pinky ring, the more obvious one thing becomes. This was never really about one song. It was about the atmosphere. It was about the surprise. And it was about what happens when two artists with completely different musical identities discover that they can speak the same musical language. That is why the performance of El Sonidito has become such an interesting moment for fans. On paper, Bruno Mars performing a Hechizeros Band classic might sound unexpected. But anyone who has followed Bruno's career knows that unexpected is exactly where he feels comfortable. His musical identity has always been built around curiosity. He can take inspiration from different decades, different genres, and different cultures and somehow turn those influences into something that still feels unmistakably Bruno Mars. That is a rare ability, and it is one of the reasons his live performances continue to attract attention even after years of global success. Now add Karol G. Suddenly, the performance becomes a conversation between two musical generations. Bruno brings a style influenced by classic American pop, funk, soul, R&B, and live band traditions. Karol brings modern Latin pop, reggaeton, Caribbean rhythms, and a contemporary global perspective. Neither one needs to dominate